Welcome everybody to the 6th Meet the Sponsor webinar. Today we have an iconic brand, Mechanix Wear. We have a couple guys from Mechanix Wear who are going to go over a little bit of the history as well as its role in sports, why Mechanix Wear sponsors, and some of the sponsorships. Sean Doppner has been with the company for 16 years. He's a director of marketing, and Jordan Dole is the director of global sponsorships. Prior to joining Mechanix Wear, Jordan was also the partnership marketing director at NASCAR. So he comes with a lot of racing experience. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that Mechanix Wear today is in 20,000 retail stores in 70 different countries, but it all started with Supercross. Am I right with that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't keep a accurate stat on how many retailers we're in, but it sounds about right. And yes, we started in Supercross. Famous mechanic Brian Lunnis brought the idea to our founder, Jim Hale, back in the AXO days when Jim owned AXO, with a single need: can you make a glove for a mechanic? And that birthed this company.
And I think you originated, Sean, didn't the original glove debut at NASCAR? I think it was the Daytona 500 in 1991. Am I right on that?
Correct. So the first glove was developed for Brian Lunnis, like I said, in Supercross for mechanic use, for his use specifically. But being in racing, it was a small community, even across the borders, if you will. And he knew teams in NASCAR. And so we migrated and had an opportunity to work with mechanics in NASCAR. And the first glove appeared in the 91 Daytona 500. And that's when we named the glove the original, actually. It used to be called Mechanix glove when it was under AXO. And then we created a separate company called Mechanix Wear and the first glove.
That's a great glove. That one fits perfect, by the way. Size extra large, just a hint, hint.
Yep, 30 years this year.
30 years this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything big on the horizon for the 30th anniversary, or is that still secret?
We've already been doing stuff, starting with the Daytona 500 this year. Jordan could speak to a few of the details, but we just launched a 30th anniversary edition carbon black version of the original. Which is more of a stylistic approach to a new original.
That's cool. So Jordan, what do you have going on? I saw that you renewed in July, just of 2020, your NASCAR deal. A lot of people weren't doing any deals last year, but you renewed. What do you have going on?
Yeah, like Sean mentioned, our product was born out of motorsports, and motorsports is key to who we are as a company. And we've worked hard over the past couple of years, especially to really hone in on the partnerships that are giving us value, and bring on new partners who continue to bring new audiences and also provide value. In the case of NASCAR, as you mentioned, we've been with NASCAR since the late 90s, early 2000s. And for us, supplying product to not only the NASCAR Cup teams, but also the Xfinity Series and Truck Series teams, as well as tracks and the league itself. There was a lot of work that went into getting the product to all those entities. So for us, part of it was maintaining what we had built over the last 30 years, but also looking at it a little bit differently. Historically we leaned on decals on cars, right, and branding, but a lot of times it's not the easiest thing to measure. And when you think about things like COVID, for instance, we're not getting many partners to the track as we were in previous years. So as part of our NASCAR deal that we renewed during COVID, a lot of it was focused on digital content, social content, and really leveraging our industry partners like the teams to generate that content for us. So a key pillar of our NASCAR partnership that we renewed was leveraging the teams to have access to their GoPro footage, right, that they own. And then leveraging those edits that we created from that GoPro footage, and leveraging NASCAR's megaphone to push that content out to their audience. And we're in the second year of that renewal, and continue to see a lot of value, certainly, but also a lot of engagement from the NASCAR fans.
So that's huge. If you're getting all the NASCAR teams who are wearing your gloves to create content, and you're getting NASCAR to push that content out, that's an amazing program, because your racers have become your infield marketing content creators essentially, and you're using them as, I guess, your infield reps. Is that a good way to look at it? Am I describing that correctly? That you're using them as your on-site brand ambassadors to create content for a series that has the media that can then show that content in the media?
Yeah, and our relationships are directly with the teams, right? So unlike some of our more grassroots racing, where it's with the driver, who is also probably the team owner, right?
Right.
This is strictly with the teams, and they sign off on the rights on behalf of those guys. So you're dead right in how we're leveraging those guys. But ultimately, it allows us to spend our content dollars on other content stories outside of motorsports, while maintaining the relationships that we built and maintaining the audience that we built through NASCAR.
Right on. Now we'll come back to racing, obviously, because Mechanix Wear is a racing glove. It's it's known in the racing industry, but you are sponsoring other areas as well. One of them being PBR. What's the rationale behind the PBR sponsorship?
PBR, we've been in the business for 30 years, right? And again, starting in motorsports, automotive retail is one of our most mature sales categories, and so we're trying to find ways that we can expand beyond motorsports. And PBR was one of many avenues that allowed us to do that. So the focus on PBR is our leather line, our Durahide line of gloves, and creating new content around that. So whether that's authentic usage, like you see in NASCAR with the pit crew members, we equate that to the latch man and the chute puller in PBR, right? The stock contractors that bring the bulls from their ranches to the PBR events are very similar to your team owners, right, in motorsports. So as many differences as there are between motorsports and bull riding, there we found that there's a lot of similarities as well in how the whole circus is put together, if you will.
Stanley Black & Decker does the same. So does Lucas Oil. So does Ford. There's certainly a commonality in the, I'll say cowboy who drives a pickup truck, because he's more likely to wrench on his own vehicle than sending his truck to a mechanic or a garage to the dealer. He'll work on his own car. So I see a perfect fit there. I think it's a great concept. Now you also mentioned, Jordan, real quick, you mentioned amateur teams. We've never discussed this. What percentage, or roughly, how do you divide your large series sponsorships like NASCAR, NHRA, PBR versus the amateurs, which are more the grassroots guys on this call, in fact, or probably would be more representative of the amateurs?
Yeah, so I think, when you look at your larger motorsports series, we're pretty well penetrated there. But the guys that are using our gloves on a regular basis, whether on their weekends when they're racing or in their job away from the track, a lot of those guys are in the grassroots, right? And so it's not uncommon for us to get 50 emails or calls to customer service a day about partnering with the company. And we try to respond to almost all of them with at least some level of discount on product, if not free product. And we find that, most of the partnerships that we have start with some level of product sponsorship. Pretty much, I would say 98% of our sponsorships are all product sponsorships, whether that be NASCAR Cup Series teams, NHRA teams, or IndyCar teams, V8 Supercar teams, Super GT in Japan, British Touring Car, MXGP. You name the series, we at least have a team that's running Mechanix Wear product, and 9 times out of 10, if not more, it's strictly a product relationship.
Right on. Now, you mentioned a lot of different series. Do you typically approach racers in those series because it's a market you're going after, or do the racers and drivers approach you? And if they approach you, what is it that they do that gets your attention?
Yeah, so domestically, certainly it would be us approaching them. But we do, like I said, field a lot of different inquiries from various racers or, airsoft, paintball.
Makes
If
sense.
there's
Yeah.
a series or a league that somebody wears a glove, we've likely received an email about it. Overseas, we have a market, an office in Perth, Australia, servicing APAC. That's a somewhat mature market for us, but certainly nowhere near what we deal with here domestically. And so we're still proactively reaching out to different teams, organizations, looking to broker partnerships that are a good fit for us. Same thing for our European office in Barcelona. Certainly much newer than our office in APAC. We're actively reaching out to various partners, whether that's in motorsports or outside of motorsports, for partnership. But here in the US, like I said, fielding as many inquiries as we do, the thing that gets someone who's interested in partnering with us to the next level is really a document that helps introduce who they are, right? Many times we'll get an email that says, hey, here's my sponsorship tiers. It's $10,000, $15,000, $50,000, whatever it may be, and that's it. Other times we'll receive a short PowerPoint of who the racer is, what they're doing, and who their social following is, how they've worked for other brands that may be similar size as us, or even larger for that matter. So finding a way to stand out in the sea of emails or calls is certainly a recommendation that we would have. I think more frequently now too, especially with our social agency, Social Supply, we're receiving a lot of forwarded contacts from them, folks who have been wearing our gloves for years and tagging us in the content that they're generating. So that user generated content a lot of times makes its way to our channels, and if the content's good enough, that same person's content will continue to be pushed through our channels, and ultimately will get the eye of our social agency, as well as myself and other members of the marketing team. So whether it's standing out through email with a short PowerPoint or one sheeter, or creating content on your own on social media and pushing that user generated content, tagging Mechanix Racing or Mechanix Wear, are great ways to kind of stand out in the crowd.
Have you ever, when a non-sponsored brand ambassador or racer or somebody uses your product and pushes it out and it was really good, have you ever used that in your own marketing, or do you first form a relationship with that individual and then use it in marketing? Or how does it work if somebody's out there very, very creative, has not met anybody yet at Mechanix Wear, wants to get your attention, and they want to create some ads that perhaps you could use? Are you receptive to an idea like that?
John, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we typically reuse within the same social platform, right? We don't do a ton of traditional ads. So it's really just about the content. Any of you guys out there creating great content, it'll be noticed by any brand, and they're more than willing to try to pick it up, because user-generated content, at least our perspective, is better than even our own generated content, because it shows authentic, credible use. Right? So we're all on social media. We all have friends. We trust our friends more than we trust brands. Even if we find alignment between a brand and one of our friends, we're more likely to use it. And so us just recasting that net, saying, check out what this guy or gal is doing. We think it looks awesome. We think what they're doing is great. Then, there's other fans in our network that think the same, and just builds our credibility along with the person who created the content.
Excellent. So is most of the content now that you're using and promoting and sharing, is most of that on social media? Or are you doing any traditional content still, print ads, radio spots?
We
TV
are
commercials?
digital first now.
Okay.
So almost exclusively digital, social platforms, possibly some radio, but that would be digital as well. No TV, no environmental graphics, and we got out of print a few years ago, 3 maybe.
We're hearing that a lot nowadays. So if a racer, let's say, was going to create content, would you recommend vertical or horizontal, landscape or portrait format?
I would suggest whatever they feel is most creative. I don't think any particular one works better than others. It's about what the content itself is.
And showing the gloves in use, obviously,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're looking for
even
aspirational content and
correct aspirational content. So it doesn't mean that the glove is necessarily front and center, right? It could be something else great that's going on, and the glove is just there contributing. Our philosophy is that we're championing those who work with their hands. And so it doesn't have to be directly on the hand, right? We might push in or ask, hey, that was a great shot. If you're going, we'd love to see more from you. And if so, could you get tighter? But sometimes it's about the environment itself.
Right on. Are there any brand ambassadors, representatives that do a really phenomenal job? Someone that just comes to the top of your mind as an example that others whose lead they can follow? And maybe that's a question for Jordan.
I would say our ambassador program is in its infancy when you think about it as a true ambassador program. The last couple of years, I've been a part of a relationship that we've had with Brian Turk in drifting. And, a lot of times we leverage ambassadors like that for product launches or for giveaways to help grow our following on certain social platforms.
Right.
But again, when we talk about authentic use, right, he's a racer, but he's also, working on different builds and different things like that for SEMA or for other brands that we can integrate into. So I think, to Sean's point, the authentic integration of our product, regardless of if your following's 500 or 500,000, is a benefit to us, certainly, and also a great way to kind of jumpstart a conversation.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense. I can see where there's a lot of crossover because most racers also wrench on their own vehicles. They do a lot of welding, they do a lot of fabrication, just like with the Supercross, most of the crew chiefs and the mechanics, they also ride. So there could be more applications with gloves than just working and fixing a car. Go ahead.
I was just saying, we just launched a new line of welding gloves. Sean can probably talk to it a little bit better than I can, but I absolutely recognize the different tasks that are required within racing, certainly, right? But whether it's fabrication or engine building or getting the car to the track, right, and everything that happens once you're there and on the way home. And we have a glove and a solution for that. And I think while we kind of dabbled, I would say, in welding before, we have really come out with a line of welding gloves, 4 different gloves for different processes that we think will change the welding game from the form and fit that you've come to expect out of Mechanix Wear, but really a level of touch and feel out of a welding glove that really hasn't been seen before. So trying to find ways to integrate products like that, right? New products that we're launching with partners or influencers, ambassadors, is huge for us, and that's actually something that we're looking for now. So anybody on the call that is a welder or has a buddy that's a welder, or your full-time job is some sort of crazy process welding, give us a shout, because we're actively looking for guys that have a story to tell around that and can give us some product use testimonials.
So I think most racers probably also do weld. Just out of curiosity, I can't see everybody on the screen, but raise your hand if you weld. Some of the guys on there, I don't see all the thumbnails, but
a couple.
I know that there's definitely some out there.
The line of gloves, the line of gloves was actually co-developed with this guy named Torch, Paul Torch Lesage. He was like the official welder of the NHRA. And he had a line of his own product, and he came on board to help us really develop the next best thing in welding protective equipment. So in addition to the gloves, we have some accessories. really game changers, because one of the things that we have that he didn't have access to before, or most other companies, is special leather technology that really keeps the leather supple and not like dried out after hours of use. And there's a couple other patented features that really help the product outperform anything else on the market.
I think it's a great idea. So I'm not a very good welder. I do have an old arc welder in the garage, and every once in a while something will break. So I live out in the country, and I'll really try my best to go out. But the gloves that we have, I've had forever, and they're thick, and you can't bend the fingers, and they're not comfortable. That I feel like I'm not really holding anything. You know, it's almost like I can't feel what the welding rod or. So I can't wait to try out the welding gloves. When are they in the market now? Are you testing it? Where can
they
I
are?
find them?
You could find them on our DTC channel. You could also find them through most distribution channels like a Granger or Fastenal, MSC, Airgas. But I think one of the things is, core to our brand was term fit, feel, function. That's why the original worked so well for so long. And really it's about taking that philosophy to other market extensions like welding, where, it was really a category lacking any kind of innovation over the last couple decades. And we felt it was an opportunity to expand our brand.
That's a great idea. Absolutely great idea. Because the logo is so iconic. People see the M and they know automatically that's Mechanix Wear. So you can apply that, and the brand has heritage of being high quality. So any industry you get into, that brand recognition and brand equity is going to follow.
Yep. We call it transfer of trust. We earned your trust in one kind of category. Let's earn it in another.
Right on, right on. So when you guys are at PBR, do both of you also try the bull riding? Have you ever gotten on a bull?
No,
not a real.
We've been advised not to do that.
Yeah, it's a little gnarly.
I threw that one out from left field. All right. So we're on this call because the attendees, the racers that are on this, are trying to learn, how to get sponsorships from brands like yours. But sometimes it's better, and you've described a lot of things that you're looking for and great ways to get their attention. But what are some things that racers and athletes should not do when they're approaching you? What are some pet peeves that you just, you've seen it so many times? You're mentioning 50 a day, sometimes calls, emails, customer service call, sponsorship requests. What are things that just turn you off and you recommend that my attendees do not do?
I think the easy ones are, very similar to when you put a resume together, right? You'll make sure things are spelled correctly. Want to make sure you're putting the best foot forward from a first impression perspective. I can't tell you how many times we received emails with poor grammar, misspelled words, and then just asking for a check to be written without a whole lot of background to go with it. I think, as I mentioned earlier, finding a way to stand out in that crowd. It's about introducing yourself first versus making a pitch. And the ones who do introduce themselves first, it makes it a lot easier to go through the deck, even if it's a one-sheeter, and say, okay, hey, this fits with our plan for this year or the remainder of this year, or what we're considering for next year, and allows us to keep that person in mind as we go into budget planning. I think, again, social media has become such a great tool, whether that's Instagram with user-generated content where we focus heavily, or even on LinkedIn. All things are only as good as how you use them. But those are all ways that we find folks to partner with. And again, those that take the time and put in the time and effort to make a good first impression are the ones that rise to the top. Like I said, we're receiving so many that we're working on a form on the website that actually puts more barriers in place, so that the folks who really are committed to a partnership take the time to fill out the form, upload any supporting documents or bios to the form, which allows us to get through more requests quickly. But also, again, the folks who really are about partnering are the ones that'll take the time to fill out the form, and the ones that just want to, blast a bunch of different emails are the ones that will, stop at that point. So
Right. Yeah, we hear
take
that
the
a lot.
time.
We hear that a lot, So out of curiosity then, how many times have you written a big check to someone you never met that sent you 50 emails, one after the next? How many people got money from you without you meeting them first?
Yeah, 0.
Zero. So far, it's everybody said zero. It's surprise, surprise, huh? Hey, you did mention one thing though, Jordan, is you were mentioning fiscal years and budgeting process. Could one of you explain when your fiscal year is and when you do make budgeting decisions? Like when is a good time to get to know you, or perhaps even propose a relationship once someone does get to know you?
John, yeah, I can talk about sponsorship, and you can talk about what maybe it actually is for our marketing department. Yeah, so I would say anytime is a great time to introduce yourself, right? Typically our budgets are finalized sometime in Q4. We start that process sometime in early Q3.
You're on a calendar fiscal year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Calendar
Yep.
fiscal.
Got it.
So, I say anytime is a great time to introduce yourself. When it comes down to us looking at how different partnerships fit within our larger sponsorship strategy for the next year, that really comes down to, Q3 for us from a sponsorship perspective. And Sean would probably say the same for marketing in general.
Yeah, I was just going to add, like just because we're saying Q3 in general, like it's never a bad time to reach out and see if there's a good relationship there. Just, no reason to procrastinate, thinking that Q3 is the right time.
Yeah, it takes
the
a
right
little while.
fit, the right fit.
I say you got to get to know someone before you propose to them. It takes a little while to get to know them.
Exactly.
You don't really propose on the first date. But do you calculate return on investment, or is it even possible to calculate given everything that you do?
Some things it is from a sponsorship perspective. There's a lot about sponsorship that is very hard to put a specific number to. When we moved away from decals on a car at the cup level, we had to look at how we measured that differently. And for us, measuring that differently pushed us to digital and social. When you look at what we're doing in PBR, same thing, digital and social is what's driving our ROI metrics. But beyond content generation, we also measure the success of our sponsorships by B2B. How can we connect our sponsorship to sales activities, whether that's partnering with other brands on co-promotions at a shared retailer, or working with an end user and driving their business to one of our distribution partners. B2B is probably the second. Actually, between the two, content generation and B2B sales are the two big drivers for us from a sponsorship perspective.
Yeah, I could see that. B2B is huge, especially if there are retailers that a team has, Full Parts or Target, maybe not Target, that's the wrong one, but let's say Napa Auto Parts would be a great one. Retail stores that a team is sponsored by, in which perhaps you don't have full distribution yet. That would seem to make a lot of sense. B2B place, would it be mostly retail, or would it be also leveraging, you're talking just a second ago about sharing in the marketing and using marketing of some of the B2B partners? Do you have official, let's say, official marketing plans that you actually discuss with other partners of some of your teams, where you say, okay, guys, I'll use your logo in my ad, you use my logo in your ad? Do you plan that, or is you leave that pretty much up to the teams to do that? Make sure that all brands are included.
Yeah, it varies from team to team, league to league. Each form of motorsport, we'll talk motorsport specifically, each form of motorsport has its strength and weakness. And we try to make sure that we play up the strengths and try to minimize any weaknesses, right? From a partner B2B perspective, we typically set a goal for the year of how many B2B partnerships we want to try to execute against. To execute against 2 or 3 B2B partnerships in a year, we have to have 5 to 10 B2B meetings a month with different partners, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
you may have a conversation with a brand that seems like a very logical fit to us, but when you talk to that brand, their strategy for their business is not moving in the same direction or any overlap with your business, and so you kick that can down the road to the next year and move on to the next brand.
Interesting.
As far as leveraging teams, a lot of times a team may have, like I mentioned, for instance, a large contractor might have a large contractor as a sponsor, and that contractor has many vendors that also may play in that same space. So how does that contractor help connect us to those vendor partners who ultimately are buying product from one of our current commercial distributors, whether that be a Fastenal, Grainger, MSC, Air Gas, you name them, they're likely carrying our product. So some of it is planned to a certain extent, essentially targeting certain brands and teams who we know have potentially a fit. And then a lot of it is up to, similar to trying to land sponsorship, the right time at the right place with the right partner.
That's excellent. Do you have pass-through rights, or do you ever pass through some of your sponsorship library to some of your B2B partners, someone that you're trying to do more business with? Do you ever give them the, logos on a hood, or, any media that otherwise Mechanix Wear would get from sponsorship?
No, it usually kind of works the other way around a lot of
Okay.
times. Because we typically, again, we don't go after drivers on the national scale. Again, a lot of times our driver partnerships are more at the grassroots level. But we focus on the hands that do the work, and therefore there's not really a whole lot to pass through. Typically it's a
Okay.
lot of partnering with brands who have similar assets or shared assets. So again, when you look at for instance, Hendrick Motorsports and Chase Elliott, sponsored by Napa Auto Parts. Napa is one of our longest running automotive partners from a retail perspective. So how do we work with Hendrick Motorsports and Napa Auto Parts to connect the dots and try to sell more gloves ultimately?
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Tammy's signaling that we have some questions in the chat room, so I'm going to let her read a question here.
Okay.
Tammy, you might need to use my microphone. Use this here.
All right. I don't want to be on film. Okay, good. Here we go. All right. Do you receive proof of performance report from your partners? If so, what method or format does that come as?
So the partners that we provide a significant amount of product to, right? So we're talking 6 figures worth of product when you think of large organizations. We typically do receive a report from them or pull it for ourselves. And a lot of that comes through national TV, Nielsen, Replicom, providing QI media value for essentially our product in use on the track or in pit stops. We use that same value for PBR, same with Supercross. But most of what we do goes back to the social digital piece and looking at impressions, engagements, video views, et cetera, on a yearly 6-month to yearly basis.
Jordan, you had mentioned that you have an agency. Does the agency handle all of your investigation into the media to see how many impressions you're getting, or do you do that in-house?
So from a social perspective, we do a little bit of it in-house, a little bit with our agency, but it's a little bit of both.
Okay. And you said that some of the sponsorship requests actually come through the agency as opposed to going to you direct. I guess that means that somehow some racers are finding your agency. That's interesting.
Well, the agency, it's our social agency. So they're managing our social handles for us. And we're in talks with them multiple times a day, sometimes more than 24 hours a day, it seems like. And on a, I would say, twice a week, we're getting an email from them saying X person has reached out with X following, and they want to see if they can trade some product for being for partnering with them. Or they may say Y person has posted 10 times over the last month, and in each post featured at Mechanix Wear or at Mechanix Racing, and it's had really unique and engaging content. This is somebody you may want to consider for this segment of ambassadors that we're putting together.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So they're seeing what's happening out in the field, and they're coming back saying, "Oh, here's some good ones.
Right.
Check this out." So Tammy's got another question here. Let me give you the mic, Tam.
This one says, what's the average length to develop the relationship with the brand company before courting and testing the waters with the next level or tier of sponsorship?
For us, it really depends. I think for motorsports, it's probably a lot longer than it is for other types of sponsorship, just depending, based on where we are as a company at this point, especially when you look at what we're doing overseas. But I think after a year of working together, I think it becomes very obvious if the partner has what it takes to kind of take the partnership to the next level or not. I think what anyone will find with Mechanix Wear is we're all about supporting those that do the work. And so if things don't go to the next level, typically our partners can count on product or product discount, regardless of where the partnership goes after a year. But I think after a year, it's pretty easy to tell. And I would preface that with pre-COVID, it was very easy to tell. I think COVID certainly delayed some of that, but typically a year.
It's interesting that you say that, because Mechanix Wear obviously is a hands-on brand for a hands-on person. Obviously, mechanics are hands-on, so if they're not out there actively doing things and recording it, there's really no reason for you to be sponsoring them. So hopefully some of these hands-on mechanics, guys who are out there wrenching on their own vehicles and now torching and welding, hopefully they're capturing that content that they can share with you so you can see what they're up to. And we have another question. Hold on.
We have quite a few questions, so you can tell me when to stop, but I've got a few here. What's something that's a must-have in a monthly report from a team?
A monthly report. I'm assuming that means a proof performance report.
Yeah, so we typically will get them, like I said, every 6 months to a year. With everything that we have going on and everything, frankly, that the team has going on, monthly is a lot of work for a lot of people. But that 6-month report typically will have a highlight of kind of the best content, the content that's delivered the highest engagement. It'll have a list of events that team or that partner has participated in during those 6 months. Essentially proving the value of the partnership beyond just pictures of, here's the car, here's the hauler, here's this, again, showing the engagement on social media, showing any sort of B2B introductions or partnerships that have come from that partnership in that 6 months. But essentially summing up any activity related to our partnership with that team or individual.
And guys, I'm with Jordan on this. The frequency of reporting is not as important as what you're showing in the reporting. When you're showing a sponsor what you've done for them, and you're giving whether it's a periodic proof performance at the end of an event, or if it's an annual proof performance at the end of a season, make the proof of performance report about the brand, not about you. It's not about how many times you got on the podium and won first place. It's how you were able to lever your sponsors visibility and create more whatever it is they're looking for. In this case, it's mostly content is what I'm hearing, with that. So make proof of performance about your sponsors, not about yourself. Show how the brand was on the podium and how the brand is the winner, not how you're the winner. And I think that's how you'll get some of these companies to re-engage. All right.
Yeah.
Tammy, one more. Okay.
One other thing on that, Alex, is, we're taught in school to sort of like format your argument, justify, then come to conclusion. No one has time for that. Tell people what you did, and then tell us how you got there.
Ooh, I like that.
We do it all the time. It's like we sometimes have to catch ourselves. Jordan and I end up doing it the wrong way half the time anyway. Hey, I was able to help deliver this for you guys. Here's how I did it. In our case, look at all this great content. These were the top performers, but start with like what the end result was.
That's good. And instead of saying, look, I got a 30-second interview on TV, well, tell who the network is, what their reach is, what the average audience is, how many people were tuned in and saw the actual program. Was it re-aired? Did it get, more than one airing? So it's not about I was on TV, but it's about who did that reach and was it the correct demographic? So proof performance, it's not about you, it's about the brand. Show the brand what you did for the brand. We have another one here.
Let's see. I believe you make mountain bike gloves. Do you also make BMX race or freestyle gloves, or wish to get into that market?
So we don't actually make mountain bike gloves. We did a collab with a local mountain bike company here. We helped them make some gloves. But our gloves are found everywhere because people have discovered different ways. That's how we've actually grown out of our racing roots into all these different verticals. We're actually, in home improvement, we're in tactical federal channels, we're in industrial safety, right? So we find people have figured out that our product is useful in many different categories. And then we go out, just like Torch Welding Series, and develop specific product to meet those specific tasks and needs. So from a mountain bike and BMX and freestyle, I'm sure people are using our gloves, and I'm sure our gloves outperform many other brands. We just haven't tackled that market right now. We're focused on people who are doing the work to build things. So not at this time though.
I can speak on the motorcycle side of things because most of these guys know that I ride motorcycles. Your original is a great motorcycle glove. It's great for dirt bikes. It really is.
Every version
private label for some of those other brands, your gloves feel great.
Jordan.
I was going to say our 0.5 glove and our vent glove are pretty good mountain biking gloves. I would say the 0.5 probably holds up a little bit better than the vent, but certainly a lot of mountain bikers in Mechanix Wear that could probably speak to a little bit better, but the 0.5 and vent are frequently used.
Well, I know, especially in the supercross and the motocross industry, is mountain biking and BMXing is training for getting physically fit for motocross racing. So every motocross racer rides bicycles. There's a huge crossover there.
Yeah, lots of cyclers.
Tammy?
Oh, somebody wrote, can we get your contact information? But I'll let you guys decide on that.
LinkedIn.
Sure.
LinkedIn.
It's up to you. But
yeah. No, I was gonna say you can find us on LinkedIn. We also have an email, racesupport@mechanix.com. You can hit us up there. Just keep in mind what we've talked about today, because race support gets filled with a lot of emails. So stand out, be unique, get to the point, and help us get to know you or your team, whoever you're representing. But race support and LinkedIn are great places to find us.
And you were also mentioning, helping you into new markets. Welding, I found out today, was one of the new markets. Is there anything else on the horizon? Any other potential new markets that, racers could help you in, or any brand ambassador, not necessarily just a racer? PBR,
Yeah, I mean, I would say think about your hobbies outside of motorsports, right? Motorsports certainly consumes a lot of my world, and certainly passionate about that. But I have other hobbies outside of that, and I imagine some of you do as well. And so some of those hobbies may include shooting. It may include DIY, whether that's DIY on your car, classic car, whatever it may be. It may be on an off-road vehicle. It may be DIY around your house. We've grown outside of our traditional automotive only gloves and touch a lot of different markets, whether that be, as Sean mentioned, the DIY, industrial applications, heat, safety, tactical. So we have a glove solution for pretty much any task. And we believe, you're probably better off wearing a pair of gloves in any task that you do, to keep your hands safe. So,
especially now after the pandemic, a lot more gloves are being worn, I suspect. Hey, Jordan, I was going to ask you, I forgot to ask this earlier, but you come from a NASCAR background prior to joining Mechanix Wear. Do you see did you see when you were with NASCAR other brands using the same approach to sponsorship, or are all brands different?
I think some of the things are probably universal, right? When we talk about, introduce yourself, get to know the company that you're pitching. When you think about how you're introducing yourself before you get into any sort of pitch, I think things like that are universal across the board. You may have heard that on other meetings that you've had so far this year. But as far as how other brands attack sponsorship, I think a lot of it depends on what their product is. For us, our product is a necessity in a lot of ways when it comes to sponsorship, and an easy way for us to organically integrate into a sport. Whereas if you're something that's a financial service or something like that, it's a little bit different, and maybe there's more financial commitment than there is product commitment. So in that respect, I think it all depends on what the company is, what the product is, as to how they view sponsorship and look to engage with partners.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Different companies have different needs. A retailer wants foot traffic into the store. Financial services or a service provider, they want lead generation. Endemic brands want to prove functionality. They want to win. Non-endemics, like let's say beverages, they just want impressions, or they want sampling for the most part. Young companies want impressions. So young companies, you can actually try to sell exposure, because the young companies, they're the ones that need the exposure. The problem with young companies is they usually don't have any money. So you're trading sponsorship for free product. So yeah, every company has different needs. In the case of Mechanix Wear, you're in several of the categories. You're a manufacturer, you're a racing, you're endemic. Interesting. Thank you for that. Tammy? Yep. I think she said there was one more.
Let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's something new. There's a lot of the same kind of questions. I'll just ask this one because I'm not sure if this was answered. Is the report something along the lines of a documentation that is sent into the company, or proof of social media outreach and getting the product seen at events?
Yeah, it's really just,
I'll say both, but
the format's going to vary, right? It could be a PDF, it could be an Excel sheet, it could be a PowerPoint, it could be a Word document, it could be an email, right? Showing the connection that you as a partner have made for the brand, whether that be through social media and all the metrics that are associated with social media. That's the nice thing about social media, right? Is we can back it up with data. But if you're at events and you're doing a data capture for your database, and part of that is giving away a free pair of gloves, for instance, how many people engaged with your setup, in the first 6 months of the year. So finding ways to get the brand out there that you're partnering with, but also finding ways to measure that beyond, here's some pictures of what we're doing, or here's how many events I went to and how many podiums I got. Finding ways to make it measurable is really what's key. How you communicate that back to the sponsor is up to you and what you feel presents best. So it really doesn't matter necessarily what the format is.
Okay, good. Thank you. Speaking of what's next, what is next? COVID had everybody sidelined for a year. Any big events or promotions or races in the future for either of you guys? I know that there's, this last weekend were all the big races, Memorial Day, but I stayed home, first time in a long time, felt good. Didn't have to go anywhere. No Indy, no Supercross or motocross. How about yourselves? Anything in the coming up?
No, it definitely does feel weird leaving the house now after about a year of not traveling to a racetrack. I didn't realize how much I missed my family when I traveled. But I think for us, we were very cautious when it came to budgeting for this year. So we'll start to ramp up things that we're doing in the next couple months. NASCAR's going back to kind of the way it used to be pre-COVID at Texas next week for the All-Star. From what I understand, at Apollo this weekend for the start of motocross, everything was pretty much wide open. And so I think things are starting to move in the right direction. So we'll slowly start to bring customers back to the track and engaging with the people who wear our product, right? And they'll talk to them and understand their pain points with the product or how our R&D team has helped them overcome an issue with the gloves. And that helps us continue to sell the brand, sell the quality of the brand. But yeah, just starting to get back into the swing of things like it was pre-COVID in the next couple months. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary, as I think was mentioned earlier. We've got some giveaways and promotion going on that's going to kick off next week or next month rather. As Sean mentioned, we just launched the welding line. We've got some limited edition stuff coming out. We did a partnership with 100% brand.
Nice.
We got some product dropping on June 8th on our website and their website. So a lot of new stuff just as a celebration of our 30th anniversary.
Well, I'll probably see you at the races, Jordan. Sean, how about yourself? Any big plans coming up?
Yeah, probably join Jordan on some races in the fourth, at the end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter. We have a few initiatives here that are going to probably tie me down while Jordan gets his travel ramped up. But nothing beyond that. We're full steam ahead with a lot of different projects here, so it takes a lot of focus and time.
Right on. Are either of you going to SEMA or PRI?
SEMA to walk. Probably not
Yeah.
PRI for me.
Okay.
Yeah. With Sean going to SEMA, I would most likely go to PRI. To walk, we wouldn't have a setup.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you for joining. This has been a great, very enlightening session. I love the brand. I have the brand, a ton of gloves here as well, with 3 sons, all who work on their cars and ride motorcycles, and a daughter who drives a Razor. We're very familiar with the gloves. And so, like you said, it does cross outside more than just the mechanics, but it's the people who are using the mechanics who are using the gloves for other things as well. Is there any last minute words that you'd like to share with my audience? The audience are primarily racers or series directors, track promoters, property owners, people who are curious how to get a sponsorship from the brands that are on the show and, just trying to get an edge over their competition. Any last minute words?
I would just say, you probably heard a lot of things that we've said from other brands that have been on the calls prior to us. But stay engaged. Introduce yourself to us. We're happy to listen and get to know you guys. Shout out to my guy Trevor on the call. He reached out to us through one of our sales contacts in the 2019, I think it was. And we got to know him, and he's been repping the Mechanix Wear brand with his activities. But no, appreciate you guys dialing in and listening, and certainly connect with us on LinkedIn and reach out through race support. Look forward to getting to know you guys.
Right on.
Yeah, I would say, patience, a little bit of patience. It's like you were describing, it's a relationship building process. Doesn't happen overnight. And being, authentic and credible. That's what we're looking for. I believe that's what a lot of brands are looking for.
Authentic and credible. Boy, those are two perfect ways to describe it. Yeah. Well, thank you once again. Thank you very much. As the regular attendees who've been on this a few times knows, I'll stay on. I'm going to switch over to a different camera here for a couple minutes. You two are welcome to stay on and answer any questions. We'll turn the mics on so that some of the attendees can ask you directly. Please don't make it a sponsor me pitch. Let's ask questions that are relevant to everybody. But in this case, unless somebody has something, no more questions, Tammy. I'm going to close off the webinar and we'll go over to the post-webinar chat. Let's see. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll be right back.